Hey, Happy New Year. It's 2026 now. Happy New Year. I don't know what that was. But Happy New Year. It is January 1st, 2026, and you know what that means? It means I am going to be ranting about Stranger Things. Finale came out last night. It was either 6 or 8 p.m. I have no idea, but it came out yesterday, and I want to talk about it. So I'm gonna pretty quickly, immediately off rip get into spoilers. So this is the spoiler warning for Stranger Things season 5 as a whole, and mostly focusing on the finale. But this is gonna be my overall thoughts, feelings, opinions on Stranger Things. Probably the last time I ever make a video about it. Maybe not. But just anyway, getting out of the way. Spoiler warning. Spoilers. Gonna be going over everything basically. So I made a video based around Volume 1, Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 1, way longer than I anticipated. And then I did not make a video about Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 2 because it came out over Christmas while I was traveling with my partner, visiting with some family, and I just decided I was like, you know what, I just want to spend that time with my family, enjoy that time, and just enjoy watching Stranger Things, and then figured by the time I came home, it was like 2 days out basically from the finale. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna wait, bundle them together. I didn't think it was worth making a whole video over 3 episodes. But I'm gonna kind of give my thoughts on Volume 2 first, and then kind of move and segue into the finale. So Volume 2, kind of going based on Volume 2, thing on Volume 2. I was pretty harsh on Volume 1. Did not like Volume 1 very much, but I stand by that. And in Volume 2, it was better. It was better. I'll say this. I think Volume 2 is better than Volume 1, and then the finale was better than Volume 2. Spoiler alert, though I really didn't think it was all that particularly special. But starting kind of with Volume 2, there were a couple things that I really liked, a couple things that I didn't really like. So I think I'm honestly probably gonna start with my positives and then kind of get into my negatives. My positives for Volume 2 were I thought the performances across the board were a little bit better. I thought the dialogue across the board was a little bit better as well. Like I thought, like the writing made a lot of sense. I think Steve and Dustin are the main highlight here for all of season 5. When they're on screen together, the acting is good and their dialogue is good for the most part. I think that's my favorite scene of the whole season. To be honest, I mean, that final fight scene in the finale was like good. I have complaints. I'll get into them. And it was just cool. Like it was hype. The monster was hype as fuck. But I think a favorite scene in the entirety of season 5 has. Oh, come here. Yeah. I tried to let him out a minute ago, and he didn't want to go. Come here. Yeah. Come here. Where are you going? What do you need? Come here. Oh. This is my little gem. This is Frankie. Mm. You okay? um, where was I? But basically, oh yeah, but their emotional beats are pretty solid. So like the scene where Nancy and Jonathan are like gonna die or whatever, and they're like running up top to try and save them and get to him and be like, yo, Nancy, Jonathan, whatever. And obviously their whole fight scene where 11 banished one, like in there, was really good. I love like one, what Dustin or what Steve said was horrible. Obviously, I think like there's truth to it. I do think Eddie kind of just killed himself partially, but I do think the way that Steve went about it was extremely douchebaggery and not great. And I love that Dustin and him actually it progressed to a fight, because again, Dustin was looking for a fight and Steve was like, "You're looking for a fight," and Dustin was like, "No, I just beat up," and he was like, "You were looking for a fight," and then he starts a fight when and I love the detail that Steve doesn't hit back at all. He's like, "Bro, Dustin, stop. You gotta chill. And he's like just taking the punches and taking the pushing. and all that, because he's like, dude, this is like my boy here. I'm not gonna fight back. So I love their character dynamic. I think they do it really well. I love the scene again where Steve is grabbing the ladder and Dustin is like, please don't do this. I can't lose you too. Like, please don't die. Why are you trying so hard to put yourself in a dangerous situation? Please don't. So I thought that was really good. So their character dynamics I really enjoyed. I'm trying to think. Um, what else? I think the explanation of the upside down, I like it. I think I'm settled on the fact that I do enjoy that it just turns out that the upside down is a wormhole that connects Dimension X and Hawkins. Like I think I actually really like and enjoy that. I think that's a really good beat. Um, it makes a lot of sense. I just, again, my main issue with a lot of this is it's just too short. Like there's not enough there, and I can't believe that's a complaint that I'm having with these run times and how long the show's been going. But I think this is a really unique show, like a really really unique show, a really unique case where more is actually better. A lot of shows either overgive or way, like they don't give enough, or they give way too much, like a show's longer than it needs to be or something like that. In this case, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think an hour is too short for some of these episodes. I think 2.5 hours is too long, but I do think that like an hour and a half and then more episodes is kind of where Stranger Things really shines. Like that formula worked really well in season 4 when all the episodes were like an hour 15, hour 25. That last episode, 2.5 hours, way too long. Like 2.5 is way too long. But I think that like hour and a half range works really well for Stranger Things. Like the episodes, the characters, and the way that they do with their pacing and stuff like that. Like I think actually, like those longer episodes work, and I think here these episodes are just too short. And I really do, I understand why nobody wanted to keep the show going. Like whether the Duffer Brothers are sick of writing the same story for 10 years, which I do not blame them in any capacity, or the actors at this point are just, they're too old. Like they're too old to be playing. Like again, Millie Bobby Brown is married and has a kid, right? And she's supposed to be in the show what, like 15? You know what I mean? Like it's just, now they're like, the actual like character age is showing, and that's another big complaint that I have. But yeah, so I think it's just too short because a lot of what they're talking about feels rushed. So like the reveal of the upside down being a wormhole of volume 2, like that's supposed to be one of the big reveals in volume 2. It's maybe 10 minutes of screen time in the 3+ hours that is volume 2, right? Like it's just not important. Like it honestly gets glossed over, and their whole plan revolves around the dimensions kind of merging. Yeah. What do you need? Uh-huh. Like their whole plan kind of revolves around the dimensions merging, and to me, again, barely given any screen time at all. And so like that's really frustrating. I think the whole escape from Camazotz thing and Max like showing back up or whatever, like whatever. Oh, holy plot armor again. So this is a complaint that I have for the long, like I complain a lot about in that first video when I talked about volume 1. I have it. Handsome. Okay. All right. I'll be right back. But um I'm probably gonna cut that. So sorry, my cat wanted to be let out. So I don't know. But basically, I think like I complained a lot about this in volume 1 where no character was dying, and I think here I've kind of changed my mind. Like, not every single character has to die. You know what I mean? I don't need like a bloodbath or anything, but I do need some kind of stakes to be raised. And holy plot armor. One, Joyce should be slimed. I stand by that. Volume 1, Joyce absolutely should have been killed. That would have raised the stakes for Will, would have raised the stakes for Hopper, would have raised the stakes for everybody involved. Like, that Joyce is gone. Like that should happen 100%, like 100%. And then 2, the next death, okay? Lucas. full blown kicked a Demogorgon like across the hallway. Like he's standing, like the trailer. He's standing in that elevator. Demogorgon lunges at him and he just kicks it out of the way. No shot. Nope. In no way, shape, or form is that okay. Like that to me is like he should have been cooked. And I love Lucas. He should have been cooked. Okay. Holy plot armor. So I feel like I like the wormhole thing, but I think some characters still have plot armor. I think some of the emotional, a lot of like there's a lot of characters involved now, and because they've really shortened this season, they made it all kind of one last season to do everything they wanted to do. Not all these characters are getting the appropriate amount of screen time. So Mike, big influence in Volume 1, non-existent in Volume 2. Basically, right? Again, Holly, which is a character that we've never cared about before up until this season, gets like 50% of the screen time, like a lot of screen time, and 11 is sidelined. Like again, 11 in this volume is still entirely sidelined, which is very frustrating. And I think, I will say, I'm gonna stick to negatives real quick first. What's another thing I didn't particularly again? A lot of it is the pacing. Some of the dialogue still isn't great. They expand a little bit on this in the finale, which I like that they came around on it. Like again, I was worried that they were gonna try to make Vecna a misunderstood character and have him be like, fighting between good and evil, and they didn't do that, which is great. But I still don't particularly love the whole Camazotz thing where they escape into the desert and then they go into Henry as a kid's traumatic memory. You know what I mean? They kind of escape. I saw a lot of discourse about this online, them not running to the portals. I get it, because they're kind of learning and understanding themselves what it means to kind of get out of that hellscape. They need to kind of they have to accept a part of themselves, and then something has to let them feel connected to the real world, like give them that kind of, like, they have to connect to themselves in their present moment outside of Vecna in some way, shape, or form in order for that portal to kind of be revealed. I kind of get the not running, but I also, like, if I was Max and that portal closed on me once before, I'd be booking it. I'd be absolutely mauling into that portal. I'd be like, Holly, you do the same. I have to go right now. So anyway, so I didn't like that. I'm also getting over being sick as fuck, so if this is kind of all over the place, that's why. What else? What else? I mean, for negatives, my main negative is that it's too short. I don't necessarily think much of it is bad. My problem is it's too short, so it doesn't hit like the rest of Stranger Things does. Like Stranger Things, their pacing so far has been really, really good up until this season, and because of that, there's not enough time to get all the characters involved, to build them up in every way. Oh, also, again, the concept of the crawl, based like with Volume 2, makes no sense. Because, all those panels that are covering all the gates, 11 just flips one up, and, they exit and get into the Upside Down that way. So in my opinion, I'm like, what is the point of the crawl? What is the point of all of that? Doesn't make sense. Okay, I feel like I've yapped about Volume 2. Positives. I did positives. Whatever. Anyway, Volume 2, whatever. So I mostly want to talk about the finale because I saw that last night. Honestly, I'm definitely disappointed. For sure. I think... I'm definitely disappointed. I think the decision to only kill off El. I'll get to that. So essentially, the finale kind of starts where their plan is in motion. They're gonna go into the Upside Down, and then they're gonna go to the top of the tower, and then El and Kali and Hopper and Murray are gonna find that tank in the laboratory, and then their goal is gonna just try to kill Vecna in his mindscape, have the kids escape with the rest of the gang down that tower. Like, so they halt the halt the worlds from merging right at the tower so that they can rescue the kids, and then they can blow up the gate after Henry's dead or whatever, and like destroy the rift, right? So there's a couple things that I liked here, and a couple things I like the plan. I like the general like gist of the plan, but everything happened way too easy. Like, this is probably my biggest complaint here. It happened way too easy and way too quick. The only thing that went wrong is that they didn't align the tower, like the tower, it's or they not they because they can't move the tower, but that their squawk radio tower in the Upside Down wasn't perfectly aligned with one of the cracks, one of the gates that goes up to the Dimension X. So the tower kind of crinked a little bit when they stopped it. And Steve almost died, and Jonathan caught him. But again, I honestly in that scene, because it was just kind of happening so fast. When I saw Steve slip and fall, because no one's died up until this point, I didn't think he was gonna die that way. I thought that was a really stupid way to kill off a character. And two, I wasn't even like I wasn't worried about him dying in that sense, because like it just didn't feel great. So when I saw him start to slip and fall, I was like, oh wow, that's wild, but there's no way they're gonna kill him off like that, and they didn't. Jonathan caught him. So the stakes weren't raised for me, and it all happened really quickly, because the moment that it stops and they go up into Dimension X, right? I like that they kind of go up into that dimension, right? Okay. This is probably my biggest complaint. I turned to my partner when we were watching, and I was like, this is probably like my biggest complaint. They're in Dimension X, and outside of that hand that Vecna's in, right? Barren wasteland, right? Which, not like the setting is the problem. There's no monster in it. There's no killer bats. There's no demogorgons. And this is one of my biggest complaints, okay? They could have gotten as creative as they want with some of these monsters. Absolutely as creative as they want. They could have thrown out a fucking, like the three-headed dragon, for all I care. They could have thrown in any kind of super dope-ass, spooky-ass monster. It's a whole world full of monsters. And you're telling me, while the gang is launching their final assault path at the big bads, Vecna and the Mind Flayer, barren wasteland, there's nothing there. There's nothing to fight. And so when they get up to kind of rescue the kids, and Vecna like kind of foils their plan a little bit by tricking Hopper into getting 11 out of the tank, right? And that the Mind Flayer kind of comes to life, basically, and so that hand like warps and cracks, and then it kind of flips into the big like final monster. I saw this and I was like, that's hype as fuck. The design for the monster is really cool. The scale of that monster is really, really fucking cool. And it's cool to see just a big bad monster at the end of this season. Like, it's just cool to see the big bad spooky fucking giant Mind Flayer actually be one of the main villains. This is where we get into two of my big complaints. One, and by two, I have a lot of complaints, but this is where we get into like the like why this is so frustrating. So one, there's no backup. There's no other monsters in the Upside Down, or in Dimension X. There's none, right? There's no reshaping the world because there's no monsters. Like, there's no defense. Like Vecna's the 5-star general, and there's no grunt soldiers on the ground at all. They are fighting a group of 5 kids, this giant ass super monster, right? This giant ass interdimensional being, this huge mountain of a crustacean looking bitch, and an LSD baby, okay, with no foot soldiers, right? They lose. Like, they essentially, how it happens, right, is 11 shows up, and 11 low key 1v, like, looking like she's gonna 1v1 this monster, was kind of sick. Like, I was watching that and I was like, fuck, bro, 11, like, move your shit, bro. I was like, 11, you got this. Like, you're locked in because she's like physically present there now. I was like, that's hype as shit. Like, 11, like, do your shit, like, mess this bitch up. And so she kind of does. She like throws a rock at it, gets its attention. And then she like hops through and she like rips open and flies into it so she can just fight Henry inside the monster, which I actually like that there's an outside fight and an inside fight going on. But what I don't necessarily like is that this giant monster gets backed into a corner by 5 people or 6 people or whatever it is. It's like, is it kind of cool? And it is reminiscent of the Starcourt Mall fight, but at this point we've already seen the Starcourt Mall fight. I was hoping for something like kind of new and exciting and different. And it just wasn't. And then that kind of comes into my second main gripe with the show. Like, it's something that I'm glad. Like, I'm glad. So essentially, like, in that traumatic memory of Henry, like, he tells 11 and Will basically, no, I'm not the victim here, What the Mind Flayer showed me, I agreed with, and I chose to follow along with the plan. So I like that they just made him evil. I'm so glad they didn't give him any kind of redemption or some shit like that. Like, to me, that undermines all of season 4. That whole monologue in season 4 where he's just a sociopath. Like, for me, if he was supposedly a good guy, would have ruined the whole show. Like, that would have completely ruined the show for me. I would have been like, no, it was nice just to see a villain be a villain. I like that. That's cool, But essentially, like, what I don't like still in the first place is that he finds that rock as a kid in the briefcase, and then the Mind Flayer is like, come find me, right? Like, I don't like that. Gives him his powers and then inherently makes him evil from there, or like awakens that evilness in him. Like, I'm okay maybe with that, I suppose. I don't like though that kind of activates his evilness from the Mind Flayer. Like, I just like the idea of him being evil to me is way more scary. Like, he's just born a sociopath is way scarier than him finding a rock. And even then again, how did that rock get there in the first place when Elle is the one who was supposed to have built the wormhole in 1983 or 1986 or in November or whenever it was, when she made contact with the Demogorgon looking for Henry in the first place, right? Like, she's the one who is supposed to have made the wormhole on that day. So how on earth did that rock get in that briefcase? And why did that scientist be like, no, you can fight it, you have to resist it? What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? How do you know that, dude? So again, for me, like, I didn't like that. I like that they kept Henry just evil, and like Henry like agreed and went along with the Mind Flayer's plan, but it established two things. One, that Henry wasn't evil before that. He just was exposed to that evil and agreed with it. Which, again, you could argue that he's evil from the start, but again, to me, the Mind Flayer being there when he was a kid ruins it. Ruins season 4 for me. So anyway, I didn't love that, but like, whatever. He's still just an evil guy. Like, he's no redemption, so I'm glad they didn't do that. But I think the only reason they wrote that in the first place is because they needed to have somewhere for Max, like something for Max to do for 2 years. Basically, they just wrote that in there because they needed it. And the other thing I didn't like was that Vecna and the Mind Flayer are one. Don't like that, because when Vecna died, the Mind Flayer died. And why? Like, I didn't get that when I saw it. Like, I didn't understand it. Like even if Vecna was quote unquote controlling the Mind Flayer, like, even if you know what I'm saying, when Vecna died, the Mind Flayer is still alive. It's just particles. Like, it's just this crazy ancient massive amount of particles, hive mind type shit. So even when the kids are like broken free, like after they kill Vecna and the Mind Flayer, I suppose, those particles just spew out of the kids, and like they're in the air. Like, the Mind Flayer, like, it's still alive. Like, it's particles. Like, they didn't kill it. Like, they killed Vecna inside the Mind Flayer, but anyway, so I didn't like that either. And then also that brings me to like my third complaint with that whole thing is that fight scene was like 10 minutes. Out of the 2-hour finale, it was over in like an hour. Like, all that buildup, all like that Mind Flayer being like the big bad of the show and Vecna being the general was over in an hour. Like, what? So I didn't love that, and it was over just too quickly, I thought. Like, I liked the idea of the kids kind of hopping up on those cliff sides and like shooting it with shit, and then Dustin and Steve were kind of underneath, you know what I mean? But like, they fought that, but that also doesn't make sense to me, I guess, because it's this giant interdimensional monster, and it has no backup, nothing there to help it in its own dimension and world, where it controls the whole world with all those monsters. Like, it controls it all. It's scarier to me than Vecna is, to be honest. Like, it's all those, like, I don't like the whole Vecna was behind it from the beginning thing. Like, whatever, I'm gonna stop complaining about that, because that's all I really keep coming back to. But anyway, but it's over in like an hour. So it's like that 5 whole seasons of buildup where this is going to be the fight of our lives, yada, 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 and it's over. The actual fight is over in 10 minutes, and no one dies. And I know that I said that I wasn't the biggest, hater on that, but no, there's not a single consequence from this fight. The only person that quote unquote dies I mean, she does die, I suppose. Is Kali, her sister, but we have no emotional attachment to that character because the moment she was introduced for us to hate her because she wants Eleven to kill herself. Because again, they could have made her a lot more complex, and if you think about her character, it's supposed pretty complex for the most part, where she's like she is reeling from the death of her friends. Like she watched her family, the one that she established outside of the abuse of Brenner, like they were murdered in front of her by these military people, but they didn't give the military people substantial enough screen time or real acting or dialogue or any kind of real sequence that kind of shows their motivation and then how that directly impacted Callie. Like, yeah, she was like, oh, pregnant women, like, they're gonna make more like her brother, they're trying to restart Papa's program, but no, I don't care about that, honestly, because they haven't made me care about it. There wasn't any good dialogue in there to make me care about them whole restarting the program, because again, the military, like they're just comically evil this season. Like there's no real scary motivation there. It's just, yo, we want 11. Give us 11. We're gonna kill you if you don't give us 11. We want 11. I'm gonna kill you if you don't. Like that's not scary. Like they don't like there's no real like I have no emotional connection to anything the military did at all this season. I just thought they were inconvenienced. Okay. Anyway, so those are my main complaints with like how the actual thing ended. It was all right. And now the epilogue, the post killing Vecna and all that. I Yeah, it was okay. It was okay. I think for me it was a little bit more emotional because I realized how sad I was that Stranger Things was over. I mean, like I'm 21 now and I grew up with this show. Like I started watching it when season 1. Season 1 came out is when I saw it, and I was 12. And I rewatched it. I don't even know how many times since. I loved season 2 when it came out. I watched season 3 when it came out and season 4 when it came out. Volume 1, like I watched it all as it came out. And so seeing the end of those characters was emotional for me. So I think for me, like the majority of my emotion comes from that. So I'm a little bit biased in the sense like, oh, like it's sad to see it go, but like I mean, but emotion aside, I mean, it didn't really move me outside of that nostalgia factor that I'm no longer going to be waiting for another Stranger Things season, like that's honestly more emotional to me than the ending of the show, because the ending of the show had so many inconsistencies, and I wouldn't necessarily call them plot holes, but so many things that are just left not talked about any, like there's so many stones that were left unturned that it didn't feel like a good satisfying conclusion. I will say what did make sense to me, what I did like is, all the characters and kind of where they ended up, like Max and Lucas falling in love. I liked, like, or sorry, let me kind of specify it. Like at the end when Mike is trying to tell everyone where he kind of sees everyone's stories going, and he is, the dungeon master, so it makes sense. Where I like that, Lucas and Max, they just get to grow old together and like fall in love and deepen their relationship. Dustin gets to go study and go on adventures with Steve, you know, and I love that Will gets to go off somewhere new adventures, new people, be accepted, get a partner. I love that. Um, like I love all those things, and I love that Mike uses his, he's using his voice now, his skills as a dungeon master to now just write these stories, and he can share his friends' bravery through the stories that he tells, even if no one believes them, and like they're make believe, in their own, reality, right? Like those are his way of being able to tell everyone about the stories that he and his dear friends went through. And honestly, like that I liked. And even thinking about it, like it is a little emotional for sure. Like I really did enjoy that. But I think there's so many things that they didn't answer, so much that I feel like they didn't do very well in this last season, to where I wasn't very satisfied, or I was underwhelmed with the ending, and to me it just wasn't as good. And that's pretty much how I feel. Um, and I wish that they had just done another season, and like they could have kept the same story, but I just wish that they had flushed it out better, not rushed the dialogue. And I wish that they had just answered all these questions, rather than, because they had to, they had to take out some of the runtime because it was too long. They just started removing scenes. Like they just started removing, the answers to these questions. They started taking them out. Like Like how did like after 11? Oh, the last thing I want to talk about, I suppose, is 11's is Elle's sacrifice, right? Like this is the one death in the show because it's unclear whether or not she died. When Elle decided to stay behind and sacrifice herself, I kind of figured it was coming. I figured that she believed she would never have a normal life. And so essentially, kind of how it happened is everyone hot like they all drove out of the portal, and the military was waiting for them and like locking them all up. Obviously, Elle kind of feared, and so she hopped out of the butt like the she hopped out of the back of the truck like just before it left the upside down, and then she stood and she essentially like everyone saw her standing in the upside down as the bridge collapsed and it took her with. And so again, you see that happen. You see her sacrifice herself. Mike is really struggling to accept it and move on. And so in that last scene, when he's telling everybody about their stories, he says, "I think you guys should know the truth, or there's another story that I need to tell, and that is of our mage, Elle." And so he believes, I think it's a coping mechanism. I think that's kind of what they were saying or whatever. It's up to interpretation, basically, where 11, it was actually Kali who used like her basically dying breaths to project an image of Elle there so Elle could escape unharmed while like everyone thought that she died, and it would only work if her friends believed it too. So that way they were no longer under military scrutiny or anything like that. Like they could all just move on with their lives. But then that way Elle could just retreat and leave. And then go find her secret village and get her happy ending as well. And it, has a couple scenes showing her getting to this remote village on the top of this waterfall, basically, where she can live out the rest of her days, alive and get that kind of future that she deserves. But it's like unclear whether or not that actually happened or if that is just Mike's coping mechanism and the gang's coping mechanism to kind of end their story. And I honestly thought, like, I don't know if I like that idea per se. I think I like the idea of it genuinely ending with her. Like her dying to me was that emotional impact. Like that is the show. It started with her. I feel like it should have ended with her. And I hope and again it's up for interpretation. There's no confirmation whether or not she lived or she died. It's just kind of is how it is. And I am sad about it. Like that probably was the one death where I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then again, like and Mike's the reason why Mike's plan doesn't make any sense or his theory doesn't make any sense though is because Kali would have blown up. She wouldn't have been able to use her spell to convince everybody that she was still there when the bridge was collapsing. So I don't know. But point is, like overall as a season, I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10, which is unfortunate because I love it. I think I love Stranger Things, always have, always will, but I do think this is the weakest season. And I am not very happy with a lot of the directions that they took. And I hope that the next project that the Devers work on, I guess, is I suppose I hope the ending is a little better. I have full faith in them as directors. They've produced some good shit for a long time. I don't really know what happened with the season or why it was rushed or what took so long or so. We'll see. But I'm pretty sure that's all I wanted to talk about. Nancy and Jonathan had some good character beats in Volume 2 that I didn't really mention, but I didn't think it was that important. Hopper and Joyce getting their happy ending. I still think Hopper or Joyce should have been killed, but since she wasn't, I'm glad they get their happy ending and they get to kind of start fresh, like as everyone does. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that is about all I have to say.